Donald Trump is just frankly fortunate to be alive again. Another tough weekend in my home state, in this case in Florida. For the second time this year, Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. It was much closer than people know. And coming up, we're going to hear from real estate developer and friend of mine, Steve Witkoff, who on Sunday morning I had breakfast with him and another friend of ours at, well, the City Diner, if you want to know, in West Palm Beach, Florida. After breakfast, I went home. They went to Trump International Golf Club for a meeting and a round of golf with the former president. I was invited to play. I said no. And what he told me was beyond shocking, because Steve witnessed the near assassination firsthand of the former president and presidential candidate. Thankfully, at the last minute, one Secret Service agent noticed the barrel of a gun being held by the would-be assassin in a treed area some 300-plus yards from the president, where he was playing golf. In just a moment, Steve Witkoff will share that story right here on TV for the first time exclusively. Also, Eric Trump, a rifle marksman in his own right, he is furious, rightly so, that a would-be assassin got so close to his father with a scoped AK-47. We'll get his take on what is going wrong with the agency. Now, if not for one eagle-eyed Secret Service officer and several others who engaged the shooter from an open field, Donald Trump likely would not be alive tonight. It seems that the potential assassin here was within moments of firing that shot. It is clear that the agents in Trump's security detail that were next to him and around him, they all acted heroically. They were all willing to sacrifice their own bodies in the face of imminent danger. What, no greater love hath man than to lay down their life for another? That's those guys and those men and women. Now, this was yet another glaring security failure at the leadership, at the DHS, the Secret Service, but they don't see it that way. Take a look.
Yesterday was an off-the-record movement, off the record, and the president wasn't even really supposed to go there. It was not on his official schedule. And so we put together a security plan, and that security plan worked.
Now, the acting Secret Service director went on to praise Mayorkas and said the DHS did a great job. I beg to differ tonight. That security plan did not work. The agents around the president were phenomenal. There are two groups of people we're talking about here. You have a deranged Democrat. His name is Ryan Ruth. He got within 300-plus yards of Donald Trump with an AK-47 style rifle equipped with a long-range scope, and Ruth was able to create a sniper's nest besides the fifth, sixth hole at Trump International Golf Course, hidden in the bushes, where he posted up apparently for nearly 12 hours, according to phone records. Take a look at this map. Look at that. Look at that proximity of, that is Congress Street, right there on the outside of where the golf course is, and the wooded area, and the fifth hole green, and right where Donald Trump was getting ready to putt. Those trees are well-known areas to the Secret Service and everybody. That is the area where paparazzi often will hide to get pictures of President Trump golfing and not be noticed. There were no Secret Service agents at all that were watching Congress Avenue. Nobody checked the wooded area, not one person. A would-be assassin got that close to President Trump with the AK-47 and the scope, where the former president was well within close shooting range. Thankfully, at the last minute, a Secret Service agent spotted the barrel of Ruth's gun, and Secret Service agents fired on his location. Ruth, unfortunately, was able to get away. Thankfully, luckily, a witness saw him entering his vehicle, snapped a picture of his license plate, and that is what ultimately led to his arrest. Take a look.
Take 2 steps to your right! Driver! Walk straight back! Keep walking!
Keep that long. We need long out.
Donald Trump is alive today because of luck and several brave, fast-acting Secret Service agents. However, as it relates to the planning and the execution of Trump's security, that part of their mission, well, I could say tonight with certainty, was an abject failure. Now, also today, coincidentally, Senator Josh Hawley, Missouri, released a Senate whistleblower report on the failures of the Secret Service from the first assassination attempt. That was the one back in July in Butler, PA. Now, according to one whistleblower, the DHS treated the Butler rally as, quote, a loose security event, did not deploy detection canines, also did not station DHS personnel at, quote, regular intervals at the security perimeter. And that's not all. The report also alleges that security personnel abandoned the roof directly across from the president. That is where Matthew Crooks ultimately took aim, because they told us the weather was too hot. Too hot? When I was in construction and I fell off a roof nearly 3 stories, well, I was on roofs that really were steep and at a slope, and that was never a consideration, not working on a hot day. Last week, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal said Americans will be shocked when we learn the full extent of the Secret Service failures that happened at Butler at the rally there, and yet the Secret Service came dangerously close to letting it happen again. What happened on Sunday was a colossal security failure. You could not have in Butler, PA, Pennsylvania, an assassin or would-be assassin 130 yards from the president or presidential candidate. You cannot have them 300 yards away in a wooded area off a golf course when the president is playing golf. Now, Ryan Wesley Ruth was a deranged lunatic who called Trump a threat to democracy. Where have I heard that before? On social media, echoing the mantra of the Democratic radical left in this country. His truck has a Biden-Harris sticker on the back. He's donated to Democratic causes nearly 20 times. Also seemed to have an agenda as it relates to Ukraine, trying to recruit former vets that fought in Afghanistan for that war effort. Now, I'll be clear. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, I don't blame them for Ruth's actions, just like Bernie Sanders was not to blame for the congressional baseball shooting carried out by one of his devout supporters. But if the roles are reversed here, you better believe Democrats, the media mob, all those in big tech, they would be blaming Donald Trump, any conservative, and every Republican. And one can ask why more Secret Service personnel are not being assigned to protect the #1 political target in the country. In fact, some very sick people on the left, they've taken it in the other direction. They're trying to blame Donald Trump for almost getting assassinated. You can't make it up. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.